Hi, everyone. Welcome to another session of day two of Sea Dreamin'. Now, in today's session, we've got Prashant, and he will be telling us of his experience of day in the life of a consultant. Prashant has 13 years of working experience in Salesforce ecosystem. He is currently senior principal at Slalom Global Salesforce. He holds 19 Salesforce certifications and actively contributes to the Salesforce community as a speaker and a trailblazer mentor. Everyone, let's give it up and let's listen up to Prashant.
Friends, welcome to Sea Dreaming. My name is Prashant Nambisan. I'm a senior principal in the global Salesforce practice at Slalom. I'm based out of Canada, Toronto, and I'm the admin group co-leader here. I've spent most of my professional experience in the Salesforce.com space. Um, Outside of Salesforce, I love creating and solving puzzles. I like playing chess as well as table tennis. These are my social media handles, so feel free to connect with me. And in today's session, I'll be talking about a day in the life of a Salesforce consultant. A Salesforce consultant role has become very popular of late. And this session is really to give you a sneak peek into what happens when you are a Salesforce consultant. So, really walking in the shoes of a Salesforce consultant from morning to evening, what sort of a busy life they have, what sort of different meetings they attend, how they add value, what are the different skill sets they need. So, really giving you an insight of what actually happens when you're a Salesforce consultant. And also, hopefully, this will help you guide you in the decisions whether you want to be a Salesforce consultant if this particular role or career path really motivates you or inspires you. So, with that, let's get started. Now, before we go through that particular day, I want to start by just describing what the Salesforce consultant role is. Now, the Salesforce consultant role, in my opinion, has different facets which come together. And the most important being solving business problems using Salesforce. At the end of the day, Salesforce is a technology which is used to solve business problems. You may be looking to increase your revenue, um, gain more leads, bring in efficiencies, and thereby cutting costs. But at the end of the day, you're solving a business problem, even though you may be using Sales Cloud or Marketing Cloud or a combination of different clouds. And you also want to, as a consultant, deliver innovative solutions. Now, what that means is you're not just looking at solving the same problem in the same way every time. For a specific requirement, you might be able to approach it different ways using Salesforce technology. And as a Salesforce consultant, one of the skills that you bring in is to be able to apply the correct solution, which makes most sense for those users, and pick that innovative solution which works best for that scenario. Also, the consultant role is definitely a team player role. You're working with various teams right from the beginning of the project, sometimes even before a project starts. So you may be working with sales teams. If you're working as a consultant or an SI, you may also work with technical teams and delivery teams, with business stakeholders who may be working on different other work streams as well, right? So you really must be able to talk to different various different teams as well as understand the big picture. And within that, I think the most important is, as a Salesforce consultant, you are the bridge between the technical and business teams. Now, what that means is when you're talking the same thing to an architect or a developer, vis-a-vis when you're saying the same thing to a business stakeholder, you should be able to switch the wordings, switch your language to be able to connect with those teams more effectively. So, for example, to a developer, you may be talking FLS and record types and page layouts and so on. Whereas when you talk to a business stakeholder, you want to talk about when you log into Salesforce, this is what you will see on the screen. Now, you may effectively be saying the same thing, but you have to be able to switch between, in a sense, those languages which help you connect with those two different teams, and also really become the bridge between them to help that connect, help that glue in a project which makes it all work. And finally, at the end of the day, as a Salesforce consultant, you are looking to deliver business value. You must always keep that in mind, that all the technology solutions are there, but at the end of the day, we are doing it for a particular broader, bigger business purpose. To be able to understand all that, to be able to use your Salesforce knowledge and apply that to a business solution is what that Salesforce consultant does. Now, with this background, with this understanding of a Salesforce consultant role, let's get to the actual session, the day in the life of a Salesforce consultant. Now, we're talking about a day in the life, right? So, from an agenda, it is obviously going to be the calendar of the day. So, I've laid out a hypothetical calendar of a particularly busy Salesforce consultant who's going to start his day at 9 a.m., work all the way till around 6 p.m. Now, as you can see, there are some slots which are free and there's a small gap for lunch, thankfully. But there are a number of meetings lined up. At 9:30, there's a high-level requirements overview of a new project which is just about to start. So this is one of the initial discussions. At 11 o'clock, there's an in-depth requirement discussion. This is in a project which is already 2 months into the line. So this is one particular use case which they're going to discuss in more detail. At 1 p.m., it's actually in another part of the building where you're talking to some of the senior executives and you're doing some roadmap planning. It's a multi-cloud strategy and it's definitely a high-level, long-term discussion, and it's not going to be any specific user stories and all. And there's a little bit of free time at 2:30, and then 3 o'clock there's a pre-sale support. We're talking about a new project which we need the Salesforce consultants help to plan for, respond to a particular proposal, do some estimations and so on. And then finally at 4:30, there is a 1 hour technical discussion. What better way to wrap up meetings for the day than with the technical team talking about all things Salesforce and in depth. And of course, there are some free slots. And as a Salesforce consultant, you want to make sure you use those as well, right? So this is our calendar for the day for our Salesforce consultant. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through each of the time slots which are given here, see how the Salesforce consultant makes best use of the time. In specific meetings, we'll see how the consultant can add value and what are the skill sets the consultants really need to be able to deliver that value, be effective in their role. So with that, let's get the day started. So 9 a.m., we've got about half an hour free, like I said. So perfect time to start planning the day, right? You can go through your to-do items, meeting for the day, do your last minute prep work for any presentations or anything. Of course, you can catch up on latest Salesforce news. We know C Dreaming is having its inaugural event, so community activities and things like that. Lots of people posting very interesting articles and blogs and YouTube videos. So definitely a lot to learn and catch up on and read what's happening. Right? So, and who knows what may come up in any of those discussions. So even though there's half an hour early in the day free, it's definitely time to get ourselves organized and caught up. And with that, at 9:30, the consultant heads for the first meeting. Now, like I said, this is a high-level requirements overview meeting. The agenda for this is an overview of a business process and key success factors. And this is for a particular business process, which is regarding capturing donation requests from a non-profit organization. So the company, what they do is they have some particular amount which they have actually uh, set aside for some community work, some CSR work, and they want to build a portal where they can capture donation requests coming from nonprofit organizations and process the same. Now this is a new project, right? So we don't have any idea about it right now. And this is the first discussion with some of the stakeholders, business stakeholders, and the Salesforce consultant is there to lend some perspective, ask the right questions. So in such scenarios, the value a Salesforce consultant brings is the ability to map business scenarios to Salesforce technology solutions. Now, as you're understanding the business process, in your mind, you'll start being able to apply, oh, this is probably something that should be built on platform, or you maybe use a community portal, maybe high volume portal licenses, and start thinking on those lines. You don't necessarily need to solution in detail, but at least start mapping in your mind, where does this fit in the overall Salesforce product landscape? And also, you should be able to understand the pain points. Right? This is high level initial discussions, but why did this project come up? What is the key problem that they are trying to solve for? Problem or problems? They could be 4 or 5 things they're looking for to solve as part of this project. And also, sometimes what happens is you may have business requirements, or the initial discussions may come without a lot of preparation. They may not have any business process mapped. They may not have all their thoughts put together in a very documented or structured fashion. So another value which you bring, and this is from the business angle, also is to keep that conversation structured and sort of be able to follow a business process flow. Now, to be able to do all that, what are the skills the consultant needs to really hone up to be able to deliver this value? First, foremost is listening skill. This is fundamental to any consulting role. You should be able to listen. And listening is not just about hearing the words, but also being able to understand non-verbal cues as well as read between the lines and understand what is it that's really bothering the business. How can you add value, right? So that's most important. Also asking the correct questions. Now you should at this point understand that you may not go get into I want to know every single field and access level on the forms of submission. You may be just talking about, okay, this is the form, who submits it, and what happens as a next step, who looks at it, what are the different checkpoints. High level, but you should be able to structure your questions based on the scenario. And this point, you're talking high level and you should be able to ask the correct questions. And then, of course, to be able to map this all in Salesforce's world, you should have an understanding of Salesforce's value offerings. What do the different products offer? Which business processes fit against which clouds and where to use them? So we've got our day started, and you can already see there's a lot to learn and also a lot of value you can deliver as a Salesforce consultant right out of the gate. So anyone who's looking for such a role, you can already start getting your sort of thought process going that this is something which I want to gain more knowledge on or build my skills against. All right. So the first meeting is just over and we are heading off to the next one. And this is slightly different. We are already into a project which is 2 months down. And this is a very specific discussion around a particular requirement. Requirement is about tracking quantities of different SKUs loaded on trucks for transportation from warehouse to stores. Now, obviously, this is with this requirement itself, you know that you are well into a project, and whenever we're talking about this, everybody in the room already has a context around what this project is and where this fits in. So you do want to start getting into specifics. Now, in this particular discussion or in such discussions, the Salesforce consultant values is around solving specific business requirements, optimal Salesforce solution. So you should be able to start thinking very specifically how you want to start building this. It's going to be a custom object. I'm going to use flow here. I'm going to use some validation rules here, so on and so forth. Not necessarily solving on the fly, but being able to start having that mental picture to be able to relate those requirements to Salesforce solutions. And also, when you're solving for this, the consultant angle comes in where you're actually adding more value is when you're thinking for the customer and you're talking about different scenarios. What happens if a truck breaks down, it doesn't arrive? How do you capture that? What if a particular SKU which is loaded and when it's unloaded, there's a difference? How do you account for that? What are the different checkpoints and SLAs you need at each step of this process? All those things which mean business may not have considered, or in many scenarios, they may not have thought of it as a requirement. So that's where the value you can bring. And the skills for this job is first of all, foremost, of course, being able to design a solution using Salesforce and paying attention to business detail. Now, the key thing here is business detail. It's not just detail, but thinking from a business process perspective. And with that, driving completeness of requirements and technical solutioning. So what that means is when you are solving for a particular scenario, try to understand it in totality so that as a next step, when you have a technical team which is going to be able to go and deliver on this, build a solution for this, ideally as a Salesforce consultant, you would have all the answers for them ready because you've thought through everything that is needed. So again, even though this sounds similar to the previous meeting we had, the value and the skills are fundamentally different because you're operating at a much more granular level in this particular scenario. All right, so we've had a few meetings, we've had a heavy lunch, and now it's going to really go to a high level, high strategy meeting on Salesforce roadmap architecture. Now, this is a very early discussion with some senior executives, and they're talking about what are the considerations for an overall B2B commerce, CPQ, and Pardot cross-cloud solution. Already sounds a mouthful. I'm having trouble even saying the sentence out loud. So you can see the value a Salesforce consultant will bring here will be fundamentally different. Now, this is true Salesforce consulting. You're really talking at high level, being able to sort of lay out a blueprint for Salesforce success. You're talking about roadmaps. You're talking about what is the strategy here, right? So you really need to show that big picture understanding and talk through different high level scenarios without really getting into details, but at the same time, talk about efficiencies, processes, what you should do. And there's a lot of leadership quality also, which you start bringing here. And also, which is sort of a subtle value you bring here, is when you understand key business drivers. Like when you're looking at what are the things which will help that particular customer succeed in their overall sort of Salesforce implementation journey, right? And you start sort of putting milestones of achievements, which you say, okay, once you implement this particular cloud or this particular combination, you start seeing this business value. So it's all at a high level, but it's definitely something which is incredibly valuable. The skills for the job is slightly different here. You need to learn continuously and proactively. And I very consciously put both these words. Continuous because, of course, Salesforce keeps evolving. There's so much happening. You need to at least try to be up to date with what's happening at a high level at least, and proactive because it has to be self-driven. Right? You will not necessarily be on projects which will span all these clouds or be always working on really complex multi-cloud solutions. So how do you yourself take the initiative to gain those skills? You also need to have some level of business understanding, and that doesn't necessarily translate to knowing how to work on a balance sheet or P&L statements and so on, but you should be able to understand how does this help the customer be successful? How does this increase their sales? How does this increase the customer satisfaction of the customers and customer, right? So on and so forth. And I think one of the important things here, especially when you're talking about this and this sort of meeting, obviously you may not be able to add immediate value if you are just starting off as a Salesforce consultant. But through your experience and through working with other consultants, architects, business stakeholders, learn from all of them, take all those inputs, and proactively start building that skill set, which allows you to look at the big picture. So definitely something which is very unique, very strong value proposition from a Salesforce consultant role. All right, so heavy duty meeting, but after that we've got a little bit of a break, and of course that means we can spend some time investing in ourselves, right? Do some self improvement, a lot of trailheads, blogs, videos, half an hour, just catch up on a few things. The point here about a systematic study plan, I think, is very important. As a Salesforce consultant, start building your learning path. What key skill sets you want to build over the year, over the next 6 months, right? It could be learning about a new Salesforce cloud. It could be about picking up some specific skill sets which will help you be more successful, but have a plan and work against that plan. So at least you know that at least by this 6 months, I want to start achieving these or adding this value. With that, it obviously helps you with a lot of direction and focus. And also what it happens is you will be able to see that you are actually delivering value against what you planned for. But I think the most important thing here is you get time, invest in yourself. That is fundamentally important. Any role you play, of course, not necessarily Salesforce consultant, but equally applies for a Salesforce consultant as well. All right, now with that, we have a next meeting, which is at 3 p.m. Now, this is slightly different. This is a pre-sale support. The project has not started. We are responding to a request for proposal for a project with a new customer. And it's about moving from MSCRM to Sales Cloud with mobile and reporting requirements. So there is a request for proposal with some details, and obviously you want to respond to it and give the necessary inputs. So the value a Salesforce consultant brings in such meetings is, first of all, work with minimal information. This is not a project to just kick started where you can have detailed requirement gathering sessions, right? May not get time with business stakeholders. So you'll be given a high level outline. How do you start building on that and start structuring the response? And with that, also articulating business value. Obviously, you will have to do things like estimation and having a proposed solution. But at the end of the day, how are you solving for that business problem? One of the important values which a Salesforce consultant will bring here is experience. When you worked on multiple projects, you played the role, you start knowing that these projects will take these scenarios, you start understanding what are the assumptions which come into play, what are the risks involved, what are the key skill sets which are needed to make such a project successful. And to develop the skills for this job, you first of all, a good thing to learn is to document and present business value. How do you? It could be as in the form of slide decks. It could be in the form of ROI statements. But how do you present that? And also estimation and resource planning, which you can obviously start doing as you're learning on the projects you're doing. But again, a very important skill set for such meetings. And one of the key things here, and this which comes is you start looking at whenever you're working on projects, understand what are the assumptions and risks. And I think for especially the last 2 points, one important way to build that skill set is as you've worked on projects, go back and do sort of a retrospective look back and see what you estimated earlier, has it matched, what are the assumptions which you missed out, and so on. So once you start doing that, you start honing those skills, and next projects you get even better. All right, so after that, there's a 4:30 meeting with the technical team, and this is an in-depth discussion about a specific use case. It's about automating the update of opportunity probability for some of the stages with a manual override for others. So Sales Cloud, there you can map opportunity stages to probability values which get assigned by default. Here, the business, for some reason, has a unique requirement where for some stages they want it to be defaulted, whereas the others, there should be a manual override. So this discussion is with the technical team, and the value you bring here is balancing the business ask and the technical solutions. So obviously we may get a lot of insights from the technical team on different ways to solution this, but also to be able to balance what is needed. Will it work for business? Those sort of answers is what a Salesforce consultant can provide. And again, as I said earlier, innovative solutions. What are the different ways you can do this? Many ways to do this. And again, as a consultant, you may be able to start adding value and say this works better. Skills for the job, optimal solution design. Looking at, and when I say optimal solution design, there's not always a one correct way of designing a particular solution. There may be one, they each may have different pros and cons, but some may work better for specific use cases. So to be able to understand what makes most sense is what I mean by optimal solution design. And understanding the risks and gaps, right? Sometimes you may build something which may incur technical debt, which may limit certain things later down the line, or which you may be making some assumptions that this is how business would use it. So to be able to highlight that, capture that, and have conversations around it is most important. And one very important thing here is because when you're talking to the technical teams, you will get a lot of technical inputs. There will be definitely considerations which you may not have taken into mind when you're doing your initial design. So you have to be open to both provide and take input. So it's definitely a teamwork here, and you have to be a team player. So again, very intense discussion, of course. After this meeting, it's sort of a wrapping up for the day. Half an hour to ourselves, and the Salesforce consultant can finally send out the last minute emails, capture notes from meetings, update any tools. So if you do timesheets and all that stuff, go ahead and complete those. But I think with all these different meetings of different stakeholders adding a lot of value, using all your skills, it's definitely time for the Salesforce consultant to smile, put your feet up, and probably sip a cup of coffee for a day very well spent. So with that, I just want to thank everyone for joining, and hope this session, which the objective being to give you a peek into the life of a Salesforce consultant, was worthwhile, and you had a great time listening. Thank you.
Hi, Prashant.
Hey, Erwin.
Good day. Well, that was quite a session, and I really learned a lot. I was smiling as you were throwing out your points there. So, the very first question I'm going to ask you is: will you be sharing a recording? Well, that's just for everyone to uh, pick on everyone's brain because we will be sharing the videos of this, all the videos of men after the event's done. But to Prashant, sorry, I'd have to apologize. I forgot to mention your full name earlier. Ladies and gentlemen, we have in our midst Prashant Nambisan. Thank you for that presentation. Now, Prashant, lots of good thoughts. I have a long set of notes here, and wonder. Um, I know you've been in the Salesforce ecosystem for quite some time, but how long were you in the ecosystem before you realized, hey, I can be a consultant?
Okay, that's a great question, and I think everybody chooses their own path, Irvin.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I came from a management consulting background, so I had an MBA. I did management consulting. I had experience in sales and finance. So obviously, I was not writing code was not my first pick. So I started off as a functional consultant, just learning on the admin portion, out of the box features, and then pretty much started in that role very early in my Salesforce career.
Mm-hmm.
So I think my background before moving into Salesforce helped me in that path. But
Mm-hmm.
I think just to answer on the behalf for a lot of folks maybe listening, that I think it's a matter of what are your skill sets, which areas do you feel you can add value best, and being a consultant takes a mixture, sort of a portfolio of skills, and if you feel that fits what you do, you should definitely go for it.
Great, great thoughts. Um, I'm surprised that because from the way that you've delivered and how you your day, it gave me a picture that you actually came from an admin background and with all your certifications right now. So I'm surprised to know the management consulting road and entered Salesforce. So, and on that note, how difficult or how easy did you find jumping into the Salesforce ecosystem from a consulting background?
Yeah, I think it was no, when I started. First of all, Salesforce was way simpler. There was no lightning. It was S control days, and literally when I studied for my admin certification, I could actually go to setup and start clicking on each item and trying it out, because
Mhm.
it was a finite list. I mean, the Salesforce help.salesforce you could download as a some 3,000 page PDF. It was just one PDF. So
Wow.
I think that in a way helped, but I guess one of the things which made it very easy was just as a tool, and that has continued throughout, as Salesforce has been a tool which has been easy for even non-developers to pick up, with a lot of features just out of the box. Of course, over your career, you understand a lot about what you can do through code, what are some best practices. So I can speak to that much more intelligently now. But I think when I started off, one of the things that helped was I spent a lot of time just focusing on learning. I would not be focused on this is my project and this is what I'm working on. I would actually go and spend a lot of time in the developer org, just systematically trying out different features, trying out scenarios, and really using it as a playground. I think that definitely helped accelerate my growth. It's a very much a learning mentality, and of course, you learn from the teams you work with as well.
Great, great. I still have a few questions here, but we have a question from the audience. This one's coming from Sunil. Reading this, he's asking, is it mandatory to learn development skills for a consultant or a solutions or technical architect?
Okay, that's a great question. I mean, because right now all these roles are very popular. Let me answer that in two parts. One is on a solution architect side, and one on technical architect side, because Both have complementary, but they are different skills. I would say for a solution architect, you really don't require development skills. You can do without, primarily because you're not really getting into a lot of actual hands-on coding, but what your skill sets are primarily mapping, um, where you can have business success using which pieces of technology and how you deliver it most effectively. So even though you may not be actually doing the coding, if your understanding of these clouds, these products, these features will deliver this business value, and this is how you should approach in actually implementing such solutions, you can become a pretty good solution architect. And I can say that very confidently because I've played those roles. So it's definitely easier ask. I would say it's like another level from a consultant, with the stronger focus on leadership and delivery side. um, from a technical architect perspective, uh, I think, see, for example, like, I know there are, you can go like a road to CTA even without actually doing coding. It's possible, but I think this is one area where you, if you have a development background, it lends a lot more weight to your experience. It helps you grow, and I think it's sort of expected that you would have that understanding and a strong understanding of a lot of those best practices. So I think when you're looking at a core technical architect role, having development skills really helps, and I would definitely look that as some of the things which will help you get there. Solution architect, not so strongly so. Of course, consultant, I think you can do it even without knowing coding. All said and done, I do want to caveat it with one of the things, especially as you grow into, say, architect or any of those roles, uh, and you grow in experience in Salesforces, you should start understanding what are the limitations of code. Just understand what you should do when, where you should write code. Understand some basic best practices. It's not tough. And through your experience in projects, you will be talking to architects and developers. So even though you may not know exactly how to write some of those triggers, but you will have some ideas. Okay, not do certain things, right? Those facets, I think, are important for anybody who has a technical angle to their role in the Salesforce ecosystem to pick up. So I definitely say you should, at least at the minimum, whatever role you're playing, uh, get that understanding. I know,
Great.
long-winded answer. Hope it helps. Yeah.
uh, get that understanding, whatever your role is. Very, very good point. And also, I just wanted to point out that I really appreciate how in your schedule, in your day in the life of consultant, you have there a slot for investing in improving yourself through learning. I definitely agree to that. Second only to plotting your lunch. that's that's very important. All right. We still have a few minutes in, and I still do have a few questions here. Having talked about the different roles that everybody plays in the Salesforce ecosystem, what would you say would be, say, advantages, or we could even say what do you like more about being a consultant versus, say, an admin post or a dev post, perhaps? What do you think are the advantages or the things that you like about being a consultant?
I think what I like is a very sort of a personal viewpoint. And I like, for example, for me, I like solving complex business problems. I like combining that with how do you map technology to business, and especially being that conduit between sort of a highly technical team and the business stakeholders to be able to speak both languages. I feel that's my sweet spot, and especially I love multi-cloud scenarios, and we've got to talk about use cases which span across clouds. So those things really excite me. So personally, for me, it gives a lot of satisfaction. I don't think it's an advantage in general, because I think all the roles have a place and importance in the ecosystem, and they all have to be respected. And uh, I mean, we know there have been developers who want to stick as a developer, and they've been doing that for 10 years, and then they are really the top developers in the world. It's something to be really proud of. So any role, I think it's important you sort of map it to what you enjoy and the skills you can bring. So fortunate for me, roles around solution architect or consultants have been a sweet spot. So and been sort of blessed to be able to play those roles. So so not an advantage, but definitely something which for me, it's very satisfying.
It's really finding that sweet spot between what you enjoy doing, your skill sets, and what you're good at. So yeah, I echo that, and I appreciate you sharing that. And all throughout your session, the thing that was echoing for me was uh, providing your business value. And I like how you started it with solving business problems using Salesforce, regardless of the cloud being utilized. So I think, yeah, learning is key there, and we appreciate you. And your number of certification definitely attests to how much you love learning. So we the community is here so that everyone would aspire to learn more and be more and find their sweet spot in the Salesforce ecosystem. So thank you again, Prashant. And for those questions that were left unanswered, we'll have time in the meeting hub. So thank you, everyone. There's a lot more in Sea Dreamin', so stick around and find your next session after this one. Thank you,
Thank you so
Prashant.
much, Erwin. Thank you so much,
Thank
Erwin,
you.
for being a wonderful host. Yeah, thank you. Thank you,
Thank
everyone,
you,
for
everyone.
joining. Yeah.